Hello, and welcome to Sparks, our bi-monthly video conference produced by Transformative Language Arts Association. I'm so happy tonight to welcome Christopher Ellinger, who's the artistic director of True Story Theater that's based in Arlington, Massachusetts. And I'm particularly really thrilled to have Christopher here tonight because True Story Theater has been selected as a keynote presenter at our annual Power of Words conference that's going to take place in August at Ferry Beach in Maine. And so it's really thrilling because I've known Christopher and worked with True Story Theater for so many years, but I'm also on the Council for Transformative Language Arts, and I also present at this conference. So I just couldn't be happier to know that True Story Theater and Playback is going to make an appearance at Power of Words, and that we have Christopher here tonight because I want to have Christopher introduce all of you to the unique features of a playback troupe like True Story Theater, and then also talk about playback in general. What is it? Well, and how does it relate to transformative language arts? So with transformative language arts, we care about the written, the spoken, the sung word, and playback theater involves storytelling on the stage, the spoken word, and singing, and a music table. And there's a lot of natural ways that TLA people and playback people work together. True Story Theater is also going to be doing a workshop at Power of Words conference. So if you're at Power of Words, you'll have an opportunity to learn and practice playback theater the way True Story Theater does it. So that's another fantastic opportunity if you come to the conference. So Christopher.
Hi.
Hi. I know. I think I'm just going to let you and I have worked together a lot in so many different venues and environments. And I'm a huge fan of the work of True Story Theater. I think it's powerful, it's dynamic, it's creative, it's healing, it's enlightening, and it's really fun. And I love spreading the word about what playback theater can do as a method of bringing people and community together. So what would you like to say about yourself as an introduction to who you are? How did you come to True Story Theater? I know you founded it with Anne. And who are you and what do you do?
Well, first I want to thank you for that very kind introduction, and say I'm so grateful for not only your enthusiasm, but also for both you and Francie being so involved for so many years in doing playback theater and getting to do it together. And I also wanted to acknowledge Tonya, who's been a leader in the company since almost the beginning. And I'm hoping that all of you will chime in. It won't just be me presenting about the work that we're doing.
So Janet, I'm not sure we introduced you to Tonya Pinheiro, who you cannot see, but she's on the call by phone. And
I am. I'm working desperately to be on the.
Yeah, don't worry, because
I'm working it.
Okay. And we have Francie Dumar, who's my daughter, who's a playback theater artist, and she's on the call as well, just to introduce you. And there was one other thing I was going to say about that, but okay, just wanted to make sure you all knew each other.
Thank you.
So I would say that I'm going to invite Francie and Kelly, if you're willing, since there are two of you there together on video, and Tonya is not visible yet. If you would be willing to do a pair for me in response to my finding playback theater, if I tell you how my initial experience of Park, another person joining. Is that what that doorbell is?
Yes. Welcome, Eric. Welcome, Eric. We can't see you, but we can sense that you're here. We feel your presence. This is Kelly Dumar, and we're delighted to have you. And okay, so Francie and I will do just with you'll explain, we're going to just use our heads or our faces, what you can see from us sitting down here.
Or your hands and your voices.
Or our
Are you
hands
good
and
with
our
that, Francie, too? Cool. So I had been with my wife Anne running another organization that had national conferences, and it was looking at the very nosy topic of how people are making money choices in their lives and how that aligns with their values. And we were looking for a way to bring arts into the conference to have people not only enjoy themselves, but also more deeply connect to each other into the content. And so I had this initial feeling of feeling relieved, like a feeling of coming home to something. Like even though I hadn't done this before, it just felt like it's about empathy and being physical and creativity, things that I deeply cared about. So I felt this relief and excitement, and then, or I'd get relief and coming home feeling. And then if I were going to pick a second feeling, it would be this excitement and eagerness to learn it and bring it into my life.
Okay.
So that might be a let's watch moment for you guys.
Okay. So this is Christopher's story about coming home to playback in Paris
For the first time.
for the first time. Oh my gosh, what's that smell? Oh, oh my gosh, I thought it smelled like money, but no. Yes, it smells like home. I'm home. Home.
This recipe is new. I guess I'll make the cake.
Yay, thank you. I enjoyed that metaphor since I'm a big fan of food and cooking, so I resonated with that.
Okay, great. Now we have Eric Campbell. He's raised his hand. No one has ever done that for me on Zoom before, so I want to make sure he's getting what he needs. Hello, Eric. We can't see you by video, but we know you're here. So I hope you can hear us. And I'm delighted. It seems like you may have. Okay. Hi, Eric. Okay, he's going to keep trying. So anyway, that was our pairs, modified pairs.
Great. So it helps if you can, those of you who are on the video chat, to get to see you guys playing it back, because the visual is so important, the physical embodiment along with the words, but it's also a good demonstration of using words in a non-literal way to capture my experience, which you did so beautifully. And that's the heart of what playback is about using words accompanied with embodiment. And the embodiment can also include music and song, which Tonya, I think, will bring in a moment. So I wonder, Tonya, are you there?
I am.
If I share something and you would be willing to sing for a moment to reflect back something in my story using words and song.
Yeah.
Up for that? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yay. Wonderful. I'm still getting how this works, so excuse me for not following all the cues. So in starting True Story Theater, I'll tag on the next part of the story. I invited people to come drop in to get a little taste of it. So we did this monthly drop-in, and each month more and more people came until a few months later, there were 30 people who wanted to audition for the company.
Wow.
I had planned for 12 people for the initial group. So I was kind of overwhelmed and thrilled by the amount of response, and excited by clearly that it hit a chord for people. Because this was still new for me. I was still learning playback at this time. So to have so many people say, "Oh yes, this really feeds me. I want in." And then I had the difficult decision to say no to 28 people, as well as the yes to the 12 people.
Mm.
So that's the next chapter. Tonya, can I pass it to you and say, let's listen. Tonya will sing it back for me.
Yum, 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 I got a taste for playback. Yum, 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 I really love the stuff. Yum, 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 let's get together and play. Yum, 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 I see you, I see you, I see you. 2, 4, 6, 10, 20, 30. How will I know who's here and not 2, 6, 8, 10, 12, 30. Oh, it's so fun. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, I'm gonna make this happen. Oh, so sorry, can't play with you. Oh, so happy playing with you. We're doing it, we're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Bravo.
Thank you, Tonya.
You're welcome.
So that's a little taste on Zoom. I've never done playback on Zoom before, so I'm really interested to see how it comes across. So typically, a performance is an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes even a little longer.
And Christopher, can you say what, just because I'm not sure how much Janet or others know, can you just say a little bit about what they would be seeing on stage that would be very different from tonight?
Yes, I think I'm going to run my slideshow now, if that's okay.
Perfect.
I'm going to try this screen share. Tell me if this works. Going to my Chrome, and then I'm going to open. Do you see the How a True Story Theater Performance Works screen?
Yes.
Now I'm going to make it larger. So this is the picture from one of our shows at Hibernian Hall in Roxbury, which is inner city of Boston, where we did a show that was based on stories of people who had come out of prison, and also people dealing with a lot of violence in the streets, especially to people of color. So Tonya is the one in the middle. So if you don't see her on Zoom, you at least get to see her picture there.
You look beautiful, Tonya. You look beautiful.
And
All right.
that was from just one moment in the show that had a few dozen people who were sharing stories that were about dealing with prison and about dealing with street violence. So it was a very powerful show. I'm getting a little echo. That's better. Okay, so next slide. This is little pictures from one of the groups in our rehearsal. So we rehearse almost every week with different numbers of people in our troupe by telling stories from our own lives related to the themes of upcoming shows that we're going to have. So we have a show coming up this Saturday that Francie's going to join us in, right, Francie? It's going to be on how to identify and dating violence. So especially for teens.
I'm going to mute everybody while we're doing this, except Christopher, just so everybody's muted, just so we don't have that echo.
Thank you. So in a typical show, people are interviewed and tell stories from their lives. So this guy on the left was at a show about stories of people with disabilities, and my wife on the right, Anne, was interviewing Jeff about his dreams, his work dreams, before we turned it over to the
Hi, welcome to, sorry, Christopher. Let
Go
me
ahead.
say hi, Len. I can't tell what her name is. Lena, welcome.
This is Christopher. I'm just giving an overview for those of you who are new to playback theater about how it works. So I was just saying that there's somebody who's being interviewed just for a few minutes from their story to get to the heart of their story in a very short time, while the actors just sit and listen and look to just be modeling good witnessing and listening, which we're encouraging the audience to do as well. The musicians pick up their instruments as they're hearing the story to get ready for the cue to begin. And music is a powerful part of supporting the playback theater. And these are examples of some of the instruments. We may use different ones at different shows. And then after the MC or conductor says, let's watch, the actors dramatize the scenes, and it could be in a very short set of sculptures with a few words, which is, in this case, there are these three actors. Actually, there's a fourth person. You can see their hand coming out from behind. They're about to step in.
Can I jump in for one sec? Tonya, we see you. Wonderful. Christopher, can I jump in and say one thing?
Yes, any of you, please.
Oh, well, not any of them, because I've
They're
muted
muted.
everybody
Okay.
for the moment, because we're having I don't want to have that echo and everything. So I'm going to get to just jump in. And I have been a little slightly distracted because people have been coming and going, but I just wanted to say, so do our viewers, do the people on the call understand when you're seeing this picture, actors dramatize the scenes, you understand that what they're doing is they have just listened deeply to whatever story has been told, and they are playing this back spontaneously, unscripted. They've had no preparation, except they've warmed up with each other to their spontaneity, but there's no written lines, there's no script. They're stepping onto the stage right after having heard the teller's story and listened carefully, and they're playing it back in real time on the spot.
Often, usually in a non-literal way. They're looking to use just very simple words, kind of like haiku, in these, especially in these short forms, to get to the heart of what the inner story was that the person shared. So moving on, is the speed okay that I'm going?
Yes.
So we look especially to do things non-literally that can be traumatic stories for people. So even if the person telling the story has some perspective on it and isn't feeling super upset telling the story, if they're telling a story that's about substance abuse or about suicide or about other really heavy issues, we look to find ways to capture the story that gets to the feeling of it, but not show any violence that can re-traumatize people. So these are a couple of scenes from stories of recovery from drug and substance abuse show that we did. That was very powerful. but still looking to have the person feel deeply heard with what the core of their story was about. And sometimes people say, well, I didn't even say that, and you got it. After the story was told, we always check back with the person whose stories, they shared their story and they got to see their story. Because we're trying to model really respectful communication, and we can't always count that we are going to be completely on the mark. So in this picture, Reverend Satcher did feel satisfied, as you can tell from his face. And when people say things like, wow, you really got my story, that really touches our heart, as opposed to people saying, oh, you are so good. So we're always looking for, did we hear the story well? Did the words capture the story? After there's been a very intense story, sometimes we invite people in the audience to share how they were affected by hearing the story. And so here are a couple of examples of our still playing back things that the audience members said when they saw a big story that had just been performed. So we can use playback theater as a process tool throughout, including in the audience's responses to some of the bigger stories. And we look to break that fourth wall, so it's not just about, oh, how great the actors are, but how wonderful it is to be part of a community together. So at the end of every show, we look to acknowledge all of us who were there in the room, both all the people who told stories as well as the people who didn't get a chance to tell stories, because all of us have stories to tell. Sometimes for certain shows, we go and interview people. So this was an interview we did at the New England Center and Home for Veterans with a homeless veteran who had become a fan of ours. He came to all of our shows that we did there. He must have come to about 5 shows in the year. We also do workshops because it's a very powerful way, even for people who aren't necessarily theater people, to learn to put themselves in other people's shoes. So here, Tonya and I were at this wonderful organization called Teen Empowerment that works with inner city youth. And the staff got a chance to dramatize their own stories of what's been challenging doing the work over the years there. At this point, we almost always have community partners that we work with. We don't just go and produce a show on a cool theme by ourselves. So in this particular show, this is an example of a show we're going to do again, actually, in June, for the Arlington Council on Aging has launched a program called an elder abuse education program, and looking how seniors can be especially vulnerable to being victims to scams of all kinds, but even abuse from people they know and even in their own family. So this was at the top picture. Let's see if I can do this. Can you see that? So they were dramatizing a scene of an old man who is being scammed by somebody in his family, and the audience members down here, which are mostly seniors, were really riveted by watching the performance. So it was a powerful way to educate them about true stories. And then we got a chance also to ask them about their feelings from watching the stories that were told. One thing I didn't say about that show is there was also the police department and many people who work with seniors who were there. So here are two partners that we've worked with a lot in the last 2 years, and we're going to be continuing to work with them. Our town's Disability Commission and the Diversity Task Group. And Stories of Stigma is actually the theme of the show we're going to do at the TLAN conference in Maine. So even though it's the same theme, we never know what stories are going to come up.
Right.
So what are people's experiences with stigma in their lives and with people that they're close to?
Now that's going to be the performance.
That will be the performance, and the workshop will just be about basics of doing playback theater and how do you put yourself in other people's shoes.
And that's a pre-conference workshop. So that's going to be on Friday morning. I believe it's Friday morning for 2 hours, I'm pretty sure. And then that's a pre-conference workshop, which anybody who's at the conference can participate in. And then the performance is, I believe, Friday night. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So that the performance will be with an audience, and probably everyone from the conference will be there for that.
And if any of you are come to Boston. We do 1 or 2 events most weeks, and you can find out about them on our website, truestorytheater.org. So hope to meet you in person if we haven't already. So thank you for being a good audience, and you can unmute, I guess, people, hopefully.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Christopher. What I think it would be great to do is I'm unmuting everybody. Now, just try to be careful with any background noise so that, hi. Did I get everybody unmuted? No, Janet, you're unmuted. And Eric, you are unmuted. Eric, why am I having unmute audio? Okay, good. I think I've got everybody unmuted, and we actually okay, so I might have I think I have to mute people. And have you raise your hand.
So can I
raise your hand or say
Can I ask a question of Tonya or Francie?
Mm-hmm.
Or both of you, actually,
Yeah.
as playback artists. So what was a moment in a playback show that really hit home for you? What was an audience that you worked with, or theme or constituency, or a moment that you remember? Just to give people more example of the power of the work, because it's very powerful.
I would say the one that comes to mind first is when I was doing a kind of bi-monthly 3-hour class at a prison. And I was working with, depending on who could be there, 10 to 16 mostly lifers, men. And I was teaching them playback, and I was teaching them improv skills. And one of the comments one of them gave me, and they all kind of agreed, was, during these 3 hours, we're not in prison anymore. And they went on to say how it affected them and how much they loved it and how moving it was, and different, comments. But it really struck me that they were able to go so deeply into the experience of it, which can be very revealing or emotional, or things that usually in that kind of environment they don't want to show other people. But we created a little community that really trusted each other to do the work. And so that really moved me to know that they had this little respite every, so many weeks.
You.
I think
Francie?
for me, I've had some really validating, very emotional moments on stage as a playback artist.
Could you be just a little louder?
Yeah, I'll turn up the volume. I've had some times on stage that have been very validating, but I think also there's been a situation where I had a story played back that I experienced by playback artists myself that is very memorable. And the reason why it was so memorable was because it was a story about a dysfunctional relationship with a very good friend that was kind of falling apart. And in the playback, the actors used the symbol of this house and a tree crashing through the house and kind of destroying everything. And the tree kind of staking home inside of this house. And that was kind of the feeling I had with this friend, that she was almost a tree, you know, kind of falling into my life and kind of deciding that this was now where she was going to live. And when I saw that playback done, I felt really validated in my own feelings, of feeling upset with where the relationship was. And I also was just really amazed at how, as Christopher said earlier, that generally in playback we use metaphor to play back stories. We're not literally playing back a story because that wouldn't bring back a lot. That wouldn't really bring out any of the emotion potentially in a story. And also then we're risking completely getting the story wrong for a person. So when the actors played it back with this metaphor of the house and the tree, and one of the playback artists playing me kind of trying to rebuild around the destruction, was very powerful. And having seen playback done, Christopher also mentioned how sometimes the playback artist will play back the audience reaction to a story that isn't not their own story. When we do use metaphor, it helps other people connect directly to a story, even if they've never dealt with criminal violence, maybe if they've never dealt with addiction or sexual assault, or simply just, having a terrible day at the DMV. But we're able to relate to each other. And what I've seen with my mom, who's worked with writers in using playback, is because there is that metaphor, that there's such a deep symbolic story that's being told by the playback artist, that really does help writers dig deeper into what is the soul of what they're trying to write, which I do think is a really successful tool. So generally, one moment for me was just getting my own story told back from me, and how I can use that idea of using metaphor in my own playback with other artists
Thank you.
Story.
Well, how about, thank you. How about if we open it up? I'd love to know if anybody else who's on the call has any questions for Christopher. So here's your chance to ask Christopher anything you want about playback theater, true story theater, the troupe, and how people get involved or what happens during the session. What would you like to ask, if anything?
Is it always about anguishing subjects, or are there examples of sharing joy?
I'm glad you asked that, since I did focus a lot on the more painful subjects. So we prefer to have a balance. So we don't want to have most people leave the room weeping. Although we usually do have tissues handy. And even in sometimes the most painful stories, there can be very funny moments. And in fact, humor can add to the power of healing and help us take in the story. But then sometimes after a very heavy story, the next person who wants to share something that was surprising and funny that happened to them. So the room also, people in the room kind of moderate what they want to, where they want to go with the different stories.
I think Janet, that is such a good question, because I think it would really be a crime if anyone left this call and didn't realize that essentially this is a form of play. I mean, at its most joyful, really. I mean, yes, we tell stories. Some of them are difficult, but I think it's fun. You know, it's to be able to play a tree falling on a house. I mean, that's really, it's play. It's fun, and it's in the service usually of something really important. But I think as adults, we don't get to play. And we don't get to play imaginatively and expressively in our daily lives. And I think playback theater is one of those ways that you get out of your seat, you stand up, and you not only be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, but you really have a chance to use these resources of your own life that you don't, your imagination. It's like, oh my God, a tree falling on a house? Well, I mean, that's just pure fun on some level, right?
Well said, thank you.
And singing, Tonya, you do so much singing, and I think, you know, that's something I think that is also reminiscent of when we're children and we just make up songs, you know, and I feel like singing, and I just make up a song as I walk along, and that's a joyful experience. I think that's another. So it's one of these ways that we can be more expressive, and we can realize in just a few minutes in like a playback workshop that we've been suppressing our expressiveness. We didn't know that we could actually sing a song spontaneously and make people laugh or cry or whatever. So I think I'm so glad you asked that, Jen, because it is a way to have fun as an adult and play. Go back to that element of real pure play and expressiveness, and discover things that you have inside to give and show that you haven't. What do you think, Jane? Any idea for any question that you have? I know the wheels are turning in there.
No, not really a question. I'm just reflecting on all those years ago when I took the playback theater workshops. I think I'd love to do it again. And I think I would be much freer now than I was then. And I could really get in there and play in a way that I didn't all those years ago.
Wonderful. I wanted to mention that there are playback theater trainings that are offered by a group called the Playback Center that includes the two founders of Playback Theater, Jonathan Fox and Joe Salas. So you can go to the Playback Center website and see upcoming, usually are weekend trainings on different subjects, both basic and more advanced courses. If you ever come through Boston, we often have drop-in classes.
But you also travel and do trainings for groups like in Florida, for instance, with the troupe that was forming in Florida. You'll go and do training the group that says, oh, we want to learn playback.
Yeah, a few of us from True Story Theater went down to Tampa and have now done a series of workshops for them. And we supported a new company starting in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we started getting started in Portland, Maine. That's now 10 years old. So we love getting to do that. And there are other people around who also do that, including you, Kelly.
A question. Is Jonathan, or I should say, are Jonathan and Joe still in New Paltz? And are they doing trainings in New Paltz?
They are still in New Paltz, and the trainings take place in different places. So you should go to the Playback Center website to see where they are offering trainings at any given time.
Well, New Paltz is there.
It's their home base, but they also travel a lot and they've spread playback theater around the world. So the next Playback Theater International Conference, which happens every 4 years, is going to be in India, which I'm
Oh, now New Paltz is very doable for me.
great. So go check it out.
So I certainly will. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do is have us move into the open mic portion of our bi-monthly calls. We're switching gears a little bit. I invite everybody who joins the call to bring a poem to read, an original poem. And this is really just a lovely piece of the call, and then we usually end afterwards. So it would be great if I knew who has brought Jane, Christopher. I know you brought something, Christopher.
Mhm.
Tonya, you brought something.
Yep.
Janet, have you brought something?
Yes.
Excellent. Jane?
Oh, Kelly, I have not.
Okay. Well, that's all right. You're certainly welcome. We just, and I'll certainly read something. Eric, can you text me? No, I'm unmuted. Did you bring a poem, Eric?
There's one that I wrote a while ago that I know by memory, so I can recite that.
Okay, good. And would you like to, you don't have an echo when you talk, but we all have an echo when you talk. So we can listen to you without an echo. So I'm going to call on you. Will you be ready to go second?
Are you talking to me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be ready.
Okay, good. So I'm going to have someone else go first. I'm going to unmute you until we're ready to hear you. Okay, good. All right, excellent. Who would like to go first?
Well, mine is short, so I could go first, and that would get us going.
Thank you, Tonya. That's
And,
terrific.
this is a poem that is one of many that's in my new book. Can I do this? Can you see that?
Yes.
Sweetwater Shadow Woman. That's my new memoir. And this is the poem. When I have dropped all my fears and facades, stepped past my self-made veils and denials, allowed my judgments of others to be red flag descriptions of what is deeply hidden in me that I fail or refuse to see. When I have dropped all these things, then I will know peace and power and sureness of step. The end.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I said I would go to Eric next. So I'm going to be quiet while Eric reads or recites his original poem. Thank you. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay. So my poem goes like this. With my nose froze and with my cold nose and my toes froze, my heart goes down winding roads to my friend, and I hope that he is one.
Thank you.
Nice.
I'm going to mute you again. Wonderful. Let's see. Janet, would you like to go next?
Well, I would, but what I have is a little longer. What I've been doing is experimenting with slam poetry with Matt Spezia. And so what I have here is a little slam,
Wonderful.
if you don't mind.
Is it about two minutes or 3?
It's about 3,
Okay.
I think. Okay. It's called Don't Call Me Dear.
Yeah.
Don't call me dear or sugar when you serve me, and drop young lady from your vocabulary, unless addressing someone that's your contemporary. And if I object, don't roll your eyes, or I'll give my money to the other guys, and you can spend the rest of your life asking, do you want fries? When did youth stop honoring the elderly as wise, and instead begin thinking we'll all have dementia before extinction? Yes, Alzheimer's is a dread disease, but it affects less than 10% of the elderly. So if you please, don't treat us all like we're dummies. Our retrieval system may seem a little slow because we have so many memories we won't let go. Like our mother telling us to sit up straight, but our shoulders are rounded from staying up late hunched over a desk trying to stretch a social insecurity check to cover rent and all the rest. But God forbid you have a condition that requires you to get a new prescription. Chances are you can't afford it unless you can order it from our neighbors to the north, who seem to understand what seniors are worth. For the golden years now are really brass, unless you are at least in the upper middle class. Then you might not have to live with the folks you love, because you can't afford to board in the care homes of today that really only care how much you can pay. Now, fat cat congressmen with government pensions won't give social insecurity a needed extension. But we paid for this program out of our paychecks, and this is the one they want to reject and balance the budget on our bended backs as they attack our feeble lifeline and our own shortened lifetime. Oh, you say my voice is a little shrill and my face lacks a sweet, grandmotherly smile? Well, excuse me. Few things in life are indubitably true, but I'm here today to give you a clue. Listen up, what's happening to me will happen to you. With any luck, I'll be on hand when you find aging's not a never land. And it's you who discovers up close firsthand social insecurity sucks, if it's not already canned. So all I have to say, my sweeties, my dear, is good friggin' luck for the next 50 years.
What is that? What is that when you shake your hand like this? Yeah!
All right. We got a slam poet in the house.
Poet in the house. That was great.
I'm glad you liked it.
I love slam poetry in general, and to have you share that with us was just such plus it's relevant to my life.
Well, yes, mine too. Well, we're lucky in Topeka to have Matt Spezia, who's the grand champion slam artist for 2016.
Are you joining us from Kansas tonight, Janet?
Yes,
uh-huh.
From Topeka.
Good. Welcome. That was very nice. Thank you so much. Christopher, how about you? Would you go next?
Sure. I have actually a show and tell for those of you who are able to see something on a camera. So this is a very short poem that I just wrote a week ago when I was weeding my garden and being so excited that it was spring. And it's also dedicated to my mother-in-law, who just died a few months ago at age 95, and we used to exchange poems with each other. And she had come out with 2 books of poetry. I was really proud of her. And we learned a lot about each other's hearts from our poetry sharing. And I realized it was very much a kind of playback theater. Words, but playback for myself as opposed to playback is usually for somebody else. And I just learned from somebody in our troupe, Annie Hoffman, to make these very simple little improvisational picture books. This is with watercolors. So this is, you can see if you can see it. This is the cover. So it's called Another Spring. Can you see the picture?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll read it and then I'll show you the picture if I can. I'm in awe. Bits of brilliant green. Both from brown earth, moistened by snow's vanishing tears.
Beautiful.
There's a little more. I'm so tempted to munch that emerald life force, recover from the cold drain of relentless winter.
Very nice.
That's nice.
Dead branches, withered leaves. You didn't make it. Not all survive.
Mm-hmm.
Not all survive.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful and poignant and nice. What a great idea to do the art with it too.
A visual and
Yeah.
visual and audio piece. I think I am last. I will. Janet, I think we got everybody. Jane didn't bring something.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And you know,
Thank you.
you could have brought something, Jane. Actually, a piece of your. You don't have anything handy, do you? From a little piece of your writing for your sister.
The thing, it would just take me too long to dig it out.
I'm sorry that I didn't think of that, but okay. So yesterday, April 24th, was I believe it was the 6th anniversary of my mother's death, and I wrote this poem actually probably around 5 or so years ago. It's just in my poetry chapbook, and it's called "The Color of Her Eyes." These lilacs, he says, are the color of her eyes the day we wed. They grew from a shoot she cut from a root in the yard of the house she left when she wished me to marry her. Her mother wished I was Catholic. I wished to do the right thing. We married in May when I promised her mother, the priest, to raise Catholics. The yard of the house we bought was dirt. We seeded grass, planted lilac, raised that child, then 2 and more until there were 5, and none of them were Catholic. These lilacs grew in the yard of this house we kept for 50 years. In April, she died. The lilacs were late, but her eyes bloomed. I sat beside her bed that wasn't ours. She opened her eyes and I smiled. She held my hand. In the end and the beginning, your hands hold. In between, you waste all your chances to let go. She looked at me. We must have remembered something like love, and then she closed her eyes and I was gone. The house is yours now, and the yard.
Nice. The word that comes to my mind is emotionally riveting. I just couldn't wait for the next words to come out of your mouth, like what's happening next. Oh, and the surprise of it as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Tonya.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I just really want to share, just thank everybody. What a variety of reading and reciting and slamming and we had on this call tonight. For me, it's always incredibly nourishing, everyone's contribution and seeing your faces and hearing your voices. Christopher, the slideshow was wonderful. I just can't say how excited I am that you all are going to be at the Power of Words conference, and you're going to perform and do the workshop. And I also really appreciate these, some of you who I'm not sure I've met before, Eric and Janet. I think we have met before. I think you have been on a call previously, maybe not. But Jane, great to see you again. Any final words, Christopher, that you would like to say before we say goodbye?
Well, thank you all for your interest, and I hope you get a full, real taste of the work, because it's hard to describe it in this way without having the experience of the interaction. And
I want to thank Francie for jumping on the call in the middle of her homework to do some spontaneous playback. And so please, the next time we meet in Sparks will be in June. I don't remember the exact date offhand, I'm sorry. But what we're going to do in the June Sparks is we're going to have anybody who's presenting a workshop at POW. Tonya, you could come on that call. So all the workshop facilitators are invited if they want to come on the call, and they're going to present a brief blurb, and talk about their class. Why am I offering this class? Who might be interested? What are we going to do? So really focused on who's going to be teaching what at the Power of Words. And so if you're thinking about shopping around and you want to make some of your workshop choices before you get to Power of Words, or if you're presenting, please come on that call. You'll get the information about it. If you're not on our TLAN mailing list for any reason, go to our website, tlan.org, TLAN.org. I think that's it. And you can just sign up, become a member. It's really inexpensive, or just visit and get on the mailing list. That's perfectly fine too. It's really been a delight to be here with you on Zoom tonight. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Christopher. Thank all of you.
Eric, great to hear from you. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube, and I'll send you all a link to it by email as soon as it's done. Next couple of days. Okay? In case you want to.
Thank you, Kelly.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.